When he announced a 7-day ceasefire against some of Ukraine's civilian targets, Vladimir Putin wanted to project power. This was a ceasefire of Russia's choosing, and Putin would get all of the praise for it. But Putin is hiding something. Russia needs the ceasefire more than anything, as its army is collapsing so completely that Putin has resorted to sending the wounded back to war. And when we say the wounded, we don't mean soldiers who have minor injuries from which they are still recovering. We're talking about soldiers who are so injured that they can't possibly serve any purpose other than being used as cannon fodder for Russia to throw against Ukraine's defenses. We're talking about amputees who are being sent back into Ukraine after losing arms or legs. And these unfortunate soldiers are being given no prosthetics and no support. This is desperation on the Kremlin's part, and it's indicative of Putin's callous nature and how much Russia's leader needs to get warm bodies, no matter what condition they are in, to Ukraine so he can project power that he doesn't have. But we'll get to all of that a little later in the video. On the amputee front, United 24 Media reported on January 30th that several Russian soldiers have come forward to share their stories of what serving in Putin's military really means. One of them, known only as Private Startsev, is a former prisoner who took the opportunity to head to Ukraine in 2024. There, he lost his leg, only to find that there was no sympathy waiting for him back home. Startsev was patched up as best as a Russian hospital could manage before being given his new orders: go back to Ukraine. We've already paid our dues in blood, so what now? Are we supposed to fucking die? Startsev raged in a video, explaining what had happened to him. The simple answer to that question is yes. Soldiers like Startsev are meant to die. And the angry survivor is far from the only amputee who Putin has sent back into the firing line after they almost gave everything to their leader's invasion. United 24 Media reports that many of Russia's amputee soldiers were part of the 126th Motorized Rifle Regiment, and they were given their orders by a colonel named Konstantinov Volodymyr Mykolaievich. A callous colonel following orders from a brutal leader, perhaps, but still a colonel who seemed all too happy to send amputees back onto the front lines without prosthetics, as Startsev reveals. They were supposed to issue me with a prosthetic, but no one cares, the former prisoner claimed, and that criminal status may have influenced Mykolaievic's decision. According to Startsev, the colonel has claimed to Russian soldiers who were convicts should all die, every last one. For those convict soldiers, fighting in Ukraine appeared to be an escape from Russia's prisons. Now, and as we'll explore later in the video, those same prisons may become the main escape for Russia's unwilling soldiers from quick deaths in Ukraine. For those who have been following Putin's shocking treatment of Russia's soldiers in Ukraine, Startsev's revelation won't be a surprise. The Russian private is far from the first to have come forward with stories of being sent to the front lines when they are in no condition to fight. There have been others, with some stories going back over a year. For example, December 6, 2024, saw the Moscow Times report on news from the Ostorozh Novosti Telegram channel that wounded Russian soldiers were actively protesting being discharged from the hospital early so they could be sent back to the front lines. Alongside several videos purporting to show soldiers with broken limbs, some of whom were on crutches, the channel said soldiers in need of treatment were sent to the combat zone in handcuffs from their unit in the Krasnodar Krai. Those who refused to be sent back to the front lines were labeled refuseniks, though that isn't the story here. Sent back to the front lines in handcuffs reveals everything that you need to know. Even as far back as 2024, Putin was desperate to bleed every last drop of blood from those who'd signed up to fight his war. After all, a wounded soldier isn't much use to the Kremlin.
but a dead one who soaked up a bullet or forced Ukraine to use a drone to kill them? That's a cannon fodder soldier who serves a use. A broken resource that has been maximized by the Kremlin, which is all that Putin cares about. The soldiers claim that officers resorted to this measure after they refused to be sent to the combat zone and demanded that they complete the treatment they had been previously prescribed, the Telegram channel adds, again highlighting just how little Russia actually cares about those who are fighting in Putin's war. The Moscow Times added its own little coda to this story. Russian officials claim that almost 98% of Russia's wounded soldiers return to combat. The Kremlin likely shared that statistic because it wanted to convince the world that the wounded soldiers were so lightly damaged by Ukraine's defenses that they always came back ready to fight. Amputees and those with broken bones being sent back to the front says otherwise. How many of the 98% who returned were actually ready or willing to fight? Russia will never reveal the answer to that question. There's a lot more where this came from, so if you're getting value from the military show, remember to subscribe for future videos that cover more revelations about the Russian army. And trust us, there is a lot more to this story. In January 2025, CNN shared a video that went a lot farther than those provided by Ostorozh Novosti, where the Telegram channel showcased Russian soldiers who were on the verge of being handcuffed and sent back to fight. CNN's video demonstrated that everything the channel had said was true. It showed Russian soldiers hobbling along the battlefield on crutches, seemingly in a slow march toward assaults that they could never be a part of. One of those soldiers is observed on his own by a Ukrainian drone as he shuffles along on a single crutch, isolated, likely terrified. He is nothing more than a sitting target. The drone drops its explosive payload and the soldier dies. Both the New York Times and Novaya Gazeta have also carried similar stories about Russian soldiers being sent to the front lines when severely injured. And it gets worse than everything that we've shared so far. Some of those soldiers aren't wounded, they're dying from diseases that make it clear that Putin is only using them as cannon fodder. Soldiers are sent to the front despite debilitating medical conditions like broken limbs, stage 4 cancer, epilepsy, severely damaged vision and hearing, head trauma, schizophrenia, and stroke complications, the New York Times said back in December. Novaya Gazeta explained that Russia has even started grouping soldiers with serious illnesses such as hepatitis and HIV into separate military units. Those soldiers have to wear armbands which allow their comrades to figure out who they are. The same outlet notes that some Russian soldiers are catching so-called trench diseases, such as tuberculosis, due to their limited access to clean water. Of course, all of these ill soldiers suffer the same fate as the wounded and the amputees. They're sent to the front lines anyway. Just more cannon fodder to die in Putin's invasion. But here's the secret that Putin doesn't want you to know. Russia isn't hiring convicts to fight Putin's war because they are the best soldiers. It's certainly not sending the injured, ill, and those who are in no condition to fight ever again to the front lines because those people want to be there. Russia has these types of people on the front lines because it can't get anybody else. Putin is desperate, and the ceasefire proposal that we mentioned at the beginning of the video is a massive indicator that Russia's use of its wounded is a sign that it can't go on fighting the way Putin wants it to fight for much longer. Let's talk about that ceasefire for a moment. On January 30th, reports started coming in that U.S. President Donald Trump had claimed to have spoken to Putin. Trump reportedly extracted a promise from Putin. Russia would cease its attack on Kyiv and other Ukrainian settlements for 7 days as Ukraine's people struggle with a lack of heating and electricity caused by Russia's constant strikes against the country's energy infrastructure.
I personally asked Putin not to fire into Kyiv and various towns for a week, and he agreed to do that, Trump declared. This is no act of charity by Putin, and it's certainly not an act of compassion. What Putin wants to achieve with this ceasefire, per Hamish the Breton Gordon in a January 30th piece for The Telegraph, is the pulling of the wool over Trump's eyes. Putin wants the praise for his move, despite having spent the entire winter ordering the bombardment of Ukraine's energy infrastructure to the point that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have been left without heat as temperatures fall to minus 15 degrees Celsius or just 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Putin wants to give the impression that Russia is winning, that Russia can afford to stop its attacks because the fall of Ukraine is inevitable. However, de Breton Gordon says that this